All right, today we're diving into a really cool PhD thesis. It uncovers this surprising link between a compound you find in soy and its potential to protect the brain from, well, one of the most common toxins out there.
We've all seen the warnings, right? We know what smoking does to our lungs. But have you ever really stopped to think about what it's doing to your brain? That's the huge question this research tackles, looking at the hidden damage that we don't always talk about.
So this study, it really zeroes in on the toxic assault that cigarette smoke unleashes on our brain cells. And it's this quiet, invisible attack that can kick off a whole cascade of neurological issues.
At the very heart of the problem is something called oxidative stress. Now, the best way to think about it is like this. All those chemicals in smoke, they create these nasty little molecules called free radicals. And when there are too many of them, they just overwhelm the brain's defenses. It's literally like rust forming on the delicate, complex machinery of your brain.
And get this, it's not just one thing happening. The smoke launches this devastating three-pronged attack. First, boom, you get that direct oxidative damage, that rusting we just mentioned. Then you get widespread inflammation as the brain basically sounds the alarm. And finally, this really sinister process called apoptosis kicks in, which is basically a self-destruct command for your brain cells.
So, faced with this relentless, multifaceted attack, the researchers started looking for a hero. And they found one in a pretty unexpected place. Not in a lab or a pharmacy, but out in nature.
And that hero is a compound called genistein. It's a natural substance, an isoflavone, that you find in really high amounts in foods like soybeans. And you know what? It's been on the radar of scientists for a while because of its potential health benefits.
And here's the crucial part. Genistein isn't some unknown quantity. It already has a reputation, a kind of scientific resume, if you will. It's known to be a powerful antioxidant, perfect for fighting off those rust-causing free radicals. It's also a strong anti-inflammatory, and it's even shown it can protect brain cells in other situations.
So this brings us to the million-dollar question, the one that this whole thesis is built around. Could this simple plant-based compound actually stand up to the sheer destructive power of cigarette smoke and shield our brain cells from all that damage?
Okay, so how in the world do you actually test that? Well, you stage a scientific showdown, and that is exactly what these researchers did, pitting genistein against cigarette smoke in a very controlled experiment.
Here's how they set it up. They ran a 12-week experiment with 4 different groups of lab rats. You had your control group, just healthy and normal, then a group that only got genistein, to make sure the compound itself was safe. The third group, they were the ones exposed to cigarette smoke. And then the all-important fourth group, they were exposed to smoke but also given genistein. This setup is brilliant because it lets you perfectly isolate what the smoke does and, more importantly, what genistein does to stop it.
And after those 12 weeks, when they crunched all the numbers and looked at the data, wow, the outcome of this showdown wasn't subtle. It was incredibly clear across every single thing they measured.
Okay, let's start with just how the rats were behaving. Look over here on the left. The smoke-only group, they showed clear signs of brain trouble. Their memory was worse, they were more anxious, their motor skills were off. But now, check out the group on the right. The rats that also got genistein, so many of those problems were reduced. Significantly, the compound was actively protecting their brain function.
Now let's go even deeper, down to the cellular level. The brain on the left, the one from the smoke-only rat, is just getting hammered by oxidative stress. Its natural defenses are totally worn out. But the brain on the right, the one protected by genistein, shows this dramatic drop in that stress. It's like genistein threw up a powerful shield, saving the brain's own little army of antioxidants.
And this, right here, this is where we get the hard numbers. See those 2 enzymes, CK and LDH? Think of them as red flags. They spike in the blood when brain tissue gets damaged. Now look at that tall bar for the smoke-only rats. That's a lot of damage. But then look at the bar for the rats that also got genistein. The difference is just, it's huge. This is the biochemical proof that genistein was doing its job.
And remember those other 2 prongs of the attack, inflammation and cell death? Well, it's the exact same story here. The smoke-only group had high levels of inflammation and clear evidence of that self-destruct sequence, apoptosis. But in the genistein group, the inflammation was way down, and that cell death process was pretty much stopped in its tracks.
So okay, we've seen all this evidence, from behavior, down to the molecules, down to the blood work. What's the big picture here? What is the major takeaway from this really incredible piece of research?
You know what? Let's just use the researchers' own words, because they say it perfectly. They concluded that genistein didn't just help a little bit, it effectively counteracts these problems. It prevented the damage, the inflammation, the cell death, the whole shebang.
And the research even tells us how it's working its magic. It's happening at the mitochondrial level. Just think of mitochondria as the tiny little power plants inside every single one of your cells. By protecting these power plants, genistein makes sure our brain cells have the energy they need to fight back and survive, even when they're under attack.
And that's what's so cool. This very specific study leaves us with this much bigger and honestly much more exciting question. If one simple compound from soybeans can do all of this in a lab, what other defenders might be hiding in the foods we eat every day? It really makes you think that maybe our diet is one of our most powerful weapons for protecting our brains.